Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Arthur. I'm business analyst at BrightWolves, and I will be the technical support during this webinar. So first of all, I want to share that I'm very happy because it's great to see so many people interested in topics such as sustainability. And I hope that through this webinar and those series, we will deliver you value and interesting insights that you can share with your friends, your colleagues, and your family. So that will be great. During this series, we are lucky to have three great speakers, and that we all talk about a topic that they are passionate about. Today is the first one. So Miguel will tell us about the two next crises our society is facing and how business can make a positive outcome of it and take the opportunities that arise from it. Next week, we have two more webinars. On Tuesday, Pascal will talk about the environmental footprint of IT services and how you can reduce them in your company. Then on Thursday, Pascal will tell us more about the circular economy and the implication for business. You are all automatically registered for those webinars, and you will receive a reminder mail 1 day and 1 hour before each webinar. So don't worry. Before we start, a few points about the setting of the webinar. So we will aim for a 1 hour webinar more or less with a 40 minutes presentation and 15 to 20 minutes Q&A at the end. If you have questions during the presentation, please post them in the Q&A tool that is below in the Zoom feature. And then we will answer them at the end of the presentation. The speaker will scroll to them and answer them in the time we planned it. Then, of course, I think you understand, but all attendees are muted by default for the best experience of everyone. And if you have any technical issues related to the webinar, please let me know in the chat. So myself, Arthur, I will take care of it and try to make your experience as best as possible during this webinar. So now I have a few words to share about BrightWolves, because I think it's important to know who we are in order to understand what we do and why we do it. BrightWolves is specialized into bridging the gap between strategy and implementation. And we do so by offering services to our customers in 4 pillars that you see in front of you. So strategy and finance, organizations and operations, digital transformation, and data-driven solutions. In all those pillars, we support our customers to have impactful transformation. And lately, we focused on the new transformation, which is the sustainable business transformation. We believe that it will impact businesses the same way digital transformation impacted businesses, and that no company can escape from it. And I will let the floor now to Miguel, who will tell you more in details about this transformation.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think you hear me. I can scroll through the slides, so we are ready to go. The title of this webinar is Understanding the Energy and Climate Crisis and How You Can Seize Opportunities Out of It. It's turning sustainability into business. That's really our focus. After this webinar, you should be able to, I hope, convince your company to put sustainability at the core of every business decision they take, explain to a colleague the impact of global warming, have an opinion on the Belgium energy mix, and take action. That's my ultimate goal. So we will spend a bit less than an hour together. My ultimate goal is that we take action. I hope you'll see the picture. So what you see is a rogue wave. How do you feel about it? Would you like to be on that boat? Would you hold yourself very tight, or would you dream to be an even bigger boat? Would you make sure that all your stuff actually is stored safely, or would you even start to do an emergency call? Or would you actually consider that wave like a surfer, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to ride the perfect wave? Today, your company is facing a rogue wave, a sustainability wave. Like most of the companies, your organization is very likely to react like that large container ship. What if you could see that wave as an opportunity and grasp it to ride it? What if that wave was an opportunity to tap into new markets, engage with new clients, attract new employees, innovate, increase productivity? Actually, my personal conviction, and I hope I will convince you, is that surfing the sustainability wave will help your company to gain in resilience and have a lasting impact. So we want to make companies surfers, and we don't want them to become distressed cargos. There are a few. So where do you want to be? That's the question. There are sustainability champions. We'll try to inspire you with them, and they are losers on the other side, and many others will follow. This is why we are today. We are here today to discuss the sustainable business transformation. It's a comprehensive toolbox to become a surfer and to ride the perfect wave. It aims to make companies resilient. There's a paradigm shift ongoing from profit-only companies towards delivering a balanced performance. It's the 3P framework that you probably know, focusing on the economic value, the engagement value, and the environmental value. We have identified 9 dimensions, and what's very important is that you don't have to focus on all those dimensions at once. Actually, what we see is when you start focusing on one dimension, it spills over to the others. After a successful sustainable transformation, companies realize that those dimensions reinforce each other and they face unprecedented success. And it will solve most of their issues. Think about engagement with your stakeholders, growth, new sources of income, actually, innovation, productivity, regulatory changes. That's what it helps. I will come back on this slide a few times, but actually we have defined 6 steps to achieve the sustainable value. So on the top part, it's more about discovering the value, and the bottom part is about building the value. So my name is Miguel Van Damme. I'm an engineer. I've worked 6 years in energy efficiency for renewables, buildings in the chemical sector. And the last 6 years of my career, I was active as business consultant, working on the transformation of energy and industrial companies. I'm leading sustainable business transformation at BrightWolves with an amazing team. I'm sure everyone knows this company, Umicore. They started their sustainable transformation 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Umicore didn't exist. It was Union Minière, literally the mining alliance. They switched from a dirty, debatable business to a high value-add technological business. And today, executives from companies like Toyota, Tesla, Panasonic, Apple, they are queuing to enter Umicore, to be able to engage with Umicore. Moreover, as ultimate recognition of their successful transformation in 2013, they were recognized as the most sustainable company in the world. Umicore focused on the environmental value. There's another example, it's Het Poetsbureau. That company has focused on the engagement value and more specifically even on its employees. They focused so much on the well-being of their employees that they called them stars. They were the first ones to really give them all the benefits they deserve with insurance, meal vouchers, and other type of frills. And that relentless focus on the well-being of the employees is an endless source of motivation, innovation, growth, and resilience. Today, they are market leaders in Flanders, having more than 8,500 employees and serving a multiple of clients. Actually, they have too many clients. That's what happened. So you say, this is very nice. I understand, nice stories, but yeah, that's not for my business. That doesn't apply for my business. Well, look at those companies. Maersk Shipping, so they are one of the most polluting companies in the world because they use very heavy fuels. Think about Delta Airlines, Halliburton Energy Services doing shale oil and fracking in the US, Goldman Sachs, one of the leading investment banks and financial firms, focusing on money, of course, any oil and gas company, BlackRock, that was in the press very recently. Those companies aspire to become surfers. They have pledged to reduce their fossil fuel addiction. Remember that addiction. And very recently, many of them took big pledges. In the beginning, I thought this is greenwashing, but when you really read what they said and what the moves that they start to do, they are damn serious about it. They realize that the current business model is not sustainable. Those are companies that you probably know. What's the difference between Netflix and Blockbuster? And between Leica and Kodak? Well, on the left side, we have surfers. And on the right side, we have distressed cargoes. Leadership at Blockbuster didn't look seriously at the digital wave that was coming. They were mocking actually the mail business because Netflix was a mail business. They were mocking the mail business of Netflix. Kodak, they refused to look at the digital wave. On the other hand, Leica, they saw, okay, we need to produce smaller lenses, and today you have Leica lenses in most of the phones, in most of the small electronic appliances. This is just because they realized the amplitude of the wave. Now, my question to you is, are you certain that your company understands the forces of that sustainability wave, that rogue wave? I know the answer. Very likely not. We have, over the last 6 months, discussed with executives of more than 50 large and smaller companies, and many are blind for the forces of that sustainable wave. So what if you would understand the forces better, know which one apply to your industry, and unlock the hidden value of that? That's what we will do now. We will discover the hidden sustainable value. We will focus on the wave. There are 4 forces. You see them on your screen, I hope. There are 4 forces. The environmental force, global warming is one, but you will see there are others. The energy crisis, think about oil, but also think about rare earths, special metals, copper, lithium, etc. They are needed for the transformation, actually. Think about political decisions. Think about people preferences. Those are 4 types of forces that will force companies to ride the wave, to become surfers. We don't have the time to cover all of them, unfortunately. You can always reach out to me to discuss all of them. I will discuss a small part of the environmental crisis and the energy crisis that are looming. So this is our biosphere. Actually, our biosphere, it's a small, very thin layer of 5 kilometers. So 5 kilometers is really nothing versus the size of the Earth. Inside the Earth, it's not inhabitable. And once we are outside the atmosphere, again, life is not possible. The equilibrium to enable life is really very fragile. Across the entire universe, and we have been looking very hard, life is possible only on those 5 kilometers where we are all sitting on right now. Okay? Why? The reasons are simple. We have a decent temperature, there is air that we can breathe, and there's water for life, and there's a protective ozone layer to avoid the UV radiation. In space, temperature goes as deep as -270. Okay. On Mars, for example, temperature goes from -140 to 0 to 0 over day. So you see the differences are so high. We have tried to, and we have achieved actually to replicate life in the universe, in space. And it was an experiment where we were able to provide life for 6 persons. And life means air, water, and some good temperature. And that experiment, it's called the International Space Station. It costed $100 billion. So to make life outside our sphere of 5 kilometers, it cost $100 billion for 6 people. Okay, and they're in a very small cabin, right? So Elon Musk is someone I admire very much, but going to Mars to enable life, it's a noble target, but I think the first mission is to protect life on Earth. And actually, since Homo sapiens appeared, so it's our human race, I would say, 15,000 before Christ, we have destroyed our biosphere. In less than 3,000 years, and there were only a few millions humans at that time, so in less than 3,000 years, we killed all the wild animals, all the large animals. Think about the mammoths, etc. A bit later, between 1000 before Christ to the mid of the 19th century, so in a bit less than 3,000 years, we killed the entire vegetation across Europe and North Africa. Okay, so this is because our agricultural model forced to cut trees. Actually, that's what happened. Plato, you know, the philosopher, the Greek philosopher Plato, wrote in the ancient days, a monkey was able to jump. A monkey was able to jump, and then now you're thinking, what is he talking about? From Attica to Gibraltar, a monkey was able to jump from tree to tree to tree to tree. Okay, so you see now on the right side, actually, that there are no trees anymore. Actually, politicians realized this, and since 1850, the situation improved. Fish, in 50 years, since that we did industrial fishing, we have overfished actually all the species. You see here in 1850, we have all the species that are underexploited. Today, we are facing a crash of all the species. So in short, there's one thing humans are very, very good at, it's mass extinctions. Let's come to CO2 concentration. Over the last 100 years, actually since that we discovered coal and oil, so mid of the 19th century and then early 20th century, we have doubled the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. You know what's the impact of that is that it causes global warming. Why? Because greenhouse gases, and CO2 is one of the greenhouse gases, methane is another one. Greenhouse gases capture the radiation of the Earth. So the heat that the Earth has gets lost in space, but because we are putting a layer of CO2 around the globe, it retains that. And following that, the global mean temperature is increasing. And so there are people way smarter than I do that modeled the projections, and they say, okay, in function of our emissions, and today we emit approximately the equivalent of 40 gigaton, it's a complex unit, sorry, of CO2 equivalent per year. In function of that, there are a few scenarios. Sorry, we are at 50 already today. In function of that, there are a few scenarios. So the Paris Agreement, was meant to limit the global heating to 1.5 or 2 degrees. That was the goal of the Paris Agreement back in 2015. Well, there's a consensus that actually we are failing massively for the Paris Agreement, and maybe Corona will be a lifesaver, but actually we know that we will fail that. And in business as usual scenario, we are going to +4 degrees of mean temperature by 2100, okay? So you know that by 2050, there will be some severe impact already. What's a scenario? +2, +3 degrees, what's that scenario? So that's like a kind of modeling, and here you see 2 scenarios, an optimistic and a pessimistic scenario. And the global heating actually will cause some extreme temperatures in some regions. Look at here, we see it's in north of Brazil, Africa, and Southeast Asia. And you see, if we go to the very pessimistic, you see that how big that they will be not suitable for human life anymore, because there will be almost 300 days a year where temperature will be extreme. Okay? So what are the implications of that? Well, a few weeks ago, I discussed with a large coffee roaster. There are a few in Belgium. The management team was extremely focused on consumer trends and on negotiating the best supply chain deals. They were tasting which kind of coffee is important. And actually, we're not realizing that 80% of their production, of their farmers, were coming from those dark red regions. And so when they saw that, they say, okay, yeah, maybe procurement today is very important, but what's our long-term strategy? What do we do for our farmers? What do we do for our consumers here? Since then, they started to put this at the core of their agenda. Just this chart made the trick. 5 degrees of temperature rise we experimented in the past. It resulted in a rise of 120 meters of the sea level, 120 meters. I didn't put the chart, but you can say bye to Flanders, Netherlands, New York, Singapore. I mean, all those countries don't exist anymore. We did it in the past. It was 5 degrees, and it was 5 degrees between the last ice age and current period. And actually, it was 5 degrees over a period of 1,000 or even 10,000 years. I don't remember. But it was a gradual thing. Now we are going to +3, +4, +5 over a period of 100 years. Okay, you understand? So you start to see that there will be some issue. The United Nations, they foresee 200 climate refugees by 2050. So 2050, even for the oldest listener, attendee today, I think he will make it. I hope it will make it to 2050, but it's really soon. And today, Europe, they can't agree on 1 million refugees. Just to highlight, the United Nations, before they say something, they need to be a good consensus. They will not be provoking. It's something that they're very convinced of. Now, let's look at the second force, because the first force, you might say, it doesn't impact my business. I'm in the mountains, or I sell oil, and that's fine. Okay, great. But there's a second force. That's very important. I hope you can read the slide. It's a bold statement, right? Energy is like drugs. It makes you feel superhuman. And we will see a link maybe just after. It makes you highly addictive, but it has side effects. So I now realize that I put Christopher Froome here, and it's not because the link of drugs, but it's just to put you in context how energy transformed our lives. So Christopher Froome, he's a Tour de France winner. I don't know how many times, but he won the Tour de France. And when he's really cycling very hard, he delivers 400 watts of power. Okay, and when he does a stage, a vacuum cleaner, when you use it, so you have one at home, that model, you have it at home, it has 800 watts of power. So Froome trains the entire year to deliver 400 watts during 4 hours. And so his energy that he can produce is 1,600 watt-hour per day or per stage. And we come back and we really think about the cleaning aids of the introduction. When they use the vacuum cleaner during 2 hours per day in different homes, they just used the same energy, okay? Energy made us superhumans. Think about the Egyptians. One slave could deliver 500 watt-hour per day. And so because they were so inefficient, you needed a lot to build the pyramids. Today, when you take the lift, and there are a few people from Quanteus group, BrightWolves. When we take the lift from the ground floor to the 6th floor, we used approximately the same energy, 500 watt-hour. Okay, so energy made us superhumans. Before energy, 99% of the inhabitants were poor, were farmers, had no comfort, had the life expectancy of 30, 35 years. So energy was really unlocking wealth. And you see that. Here it's a graph. You see on the vertical axis the GDP. And you see on the horizontal axis, you see the energy used per capita. So we're not talking about pollution, we're talking about energy. And you see that the countries that are wealthy, they use a lot of energy. Okay, they use a lot of energy. Those are the wealthy countries. And you see that the countries that are poor have less GDP. Maybe they're happy. Yeah? I'm not saying that living in Greece or Portugal is very nice, but they have less wealth. They use less energy. So there's a one-on-one undeniable correlation. Then you see a few outliers. Well, Canada is quite polluting due to their industry. And Luxembourg and Switzerland, I mean, obviously they capture the wealth with a niche, a banking niche, and that's why they are above the curve. They surperform versus the expected energy use. Denmark might be an efficient country. I don't know. Here I plotted exactly the same for Belgium. This is the evolution for Belgium between 1960 and 2015. Data is not available yet for the last 5 years, but what we see is that Belgium started here and then climbed the wealth path. That's what we see. Economic growth in Belgium was linked to an increasing energy use, and since 2008, you remember the crisis, energy use is flat. Energy use decreased, and you see that the growth actually is also going down. Actually, the GDP per capita is really flat in current US dollars. Okay, so you see the link. It's really hard. Now you say, okay, nice, interesting. Let's use more energy to have more wealth. But the problem is that even today, 80% of the global primary energy comes from fossil fuels. So coal is very big, crude oil is very big, and natural gas is still growing. So I love wind and solar. They're very small. Okay, and it's not surprisingly, before we discovered natural gas, crude oil, and coal, and nuclear, etc., those didn't exist. There was only wind. Think about the windmills, the ancient windmills, and so there was no wealth. There was no well-being. Actually, there was no economic value. Now this is for the global, for the planet. So people really, before 1850, everyone was poor. Here people started to have a middle class, and there we saw booming. Really a boom to grow. Belgium is a bit different. We have only 40% of oil and 25% of natural gas. So natural gas coming from Russia, Algeria, and the Netherlands, and a bit of Norway. So that's better, right? So the world is 80% and we are at 65. Well, just think about it. What if Belgium didn't have nuclear plants? What will happen? Will we be able to scale this number? So those, yeah, probably, but it will cost a lot of money and it will be a challenge. Okay, so that's a personal conviction. I'm not sure we have to build no new nuclear plants, but given we have the assets, given there's trouble for oil, and I will come to that later, it's not a wise decision if safety is okay. But from just a dogmatic point of view, what happened after Fukushima, it's not a wise decision today to close our nuclear plants. Okay, you understand it? No more oil, no more energy. No more energy, no more growth, but also no more food, clothes, house, cars. All that is gone. Well, okay, I hear you. Okay, I understand that problem for CO2, but we have enough oil, right? This is official data. We have at 2015 oil consumption, but you see that oil consumption is increasing, or energy consumption is increasing. We have 50 years to go. No problem. Huh? I don't see a problem. Natural gas is a bit higher, and coal it's way more. Now, coal, you have to understand, and it's a small anecdote, but coal, it's very difficult to ship. So you will not buy coal in Australia and use it here, while oil is very energy dense and it's a global market. Coal is very difficult to ship, and coal is present in only 4 countries. China, Australia, India, and US, if I'm not mistaken. So 90% of the coal reserves in the world are there. So here, actually, we as Europeans, we have access to that very small bit. All the rest, a bit in Germany, but there's not a lot, and all the rest is for China, Australia, India, and US. Natural gas is very nice, but it's fixed pipelines. It's not a global market. And so we have oil. Those are the oil reserves. So those are the evolution of oil reserves. So the unit is 1,000 million barrels. Why do they use that unit? Because consumption is in million barrels. So that's why they talk about 1,000 million barrels. Proved reserves, you will see that I have a question mark around proved, but proved reserves are in 1,000 million barrels. What's very important, it's that those are volumes. It's not the energy density. Because the first thing that I have 4 anecdotes about that. The first thing is that 25% of the reserves, so Canada and 15% of Venezuela, they also have 3% of better oil, but Canada and Venezuela, so 25% of the world's reserves, it's really bad quality oil, okay? It's so bad quality that it's traded at 1/3 of the regular price. So if the current price is $30 for the Brent, that crude will be sold at $10, okay? So that's one thing, and the energy density is so bad. So it's actually you can already wipe those out. The second thing is that OPEC countries, so we have them there: Venezuela, Saudi, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, UAE, Libya, Nigeria, Qatar. Those countries, they lie about their reserves. Yeah, I mean nobody can no, but actually in Saudi Arabia, I know the anecdote. Nobody knows the reserves of Saudi. They just put a number, and you see that they don't change that number. You see, it's funny. Yeah? For 30 years, they have been producing 10 million barrels per year. Okay, so they have been producing 10 million barrels per day. Sorry, they didn't change. Huh? What I would expect is something like that, and not a flat curve. Okay. And you see all the OPEC countries, basically same trick. We produce, but the curve is flat. Funny, right? Why? Very simple. And it's a bit technical, I'm sorry, but OPEC agrees on the production quotas. They say you can produce 1 million, you can produce 400,000, you can produce 200,000, etc. They agree. And how they agree on that is based on the one who has the most reserves. So if I say that I have a lot of reserves, I can produce a lot. If I say that I have a limited reserves, I can produce way less. So basically, they have an incentive to always produce more. In 1984-85, there was a small crisis. Suddenly, they all discovered new oil. And we don't know where the oil is. There are no new fields. And this is the large bad quality of Venezuela. Sorry, I realize it's a bit messy. Saudi, voilà, they produce 10 million barrels per day, and UAE, voilà. A non-OPEC country, so real countries, this is how their reserves would look like. Be careful, the scale is here a bit different. But you see those are the reserves, and those are the evolution in time. And you see, for example, Mexico, they had a lot of oil, and now it's decreasing, okay? Same for UK, Norway, Indonesia. Actually, all those countries were producing oil, but they're producing way less. But they have way less, and you will see in 1 second that they were producing less as well. So all those countries are past peak, so it starts to decline. That's important. And the new fields that we find, well, it's like Easter eggs. Maybe you did that Easter eggs this weekend. I don't know. I hope you have a garden. Well, in the past, when you start to look for oil, you find big eggs, easy to extract. And then when you're looking for oil for many years, at the end you find only small eggs. Okay, so here it's the size of the eggs they find, the size of the new oil fields. So in the beginning, we found very large oil fields in Saudi, in Iraq, in Texas, very large oil fields. And now the new fields, they're very small. Okay. Once a field is past its peak, and it's my last slide about the oil thing. Once a field is past its peak of output, it will produce 6 to 8% less per year. So a new field, I produce a lot. I reach my peak, I still produce a lot, and then when it starts to decline, it declines rapidly and the flow becomes less. And here you have per type of field. So if it's onshore, if it's a super giant field, if it's the size, in non-OPEC countries, in OPEC countries, it's all the type of fields. You see that the output, this is the decline rate, the output is declining, so that every year oil is declining a bit. And actually, the International Energy Agency, and actually the graph is from the International Energy Agency, they have recognized, they have said, oil, traditional oil like we know it, we reached the peak in 2008. So that was a bold statement, nobody reacted. The press was talking only about renewables, but actually oil, that's fundamental in our energy mix, reached its peak in 2008. So since 2008, it's the output of traditional oil is declining. Now, think about it, when the oil supply, so it's the production, from established fields diminishes, that's what we see. I try to find my pointer. Voila. So this is what we see. When the supply diminishes, you have the curve that moves. And when we have growth, the demand increases, you see that the price goes up. Okay? The price goes up, the price and the quantity. You have two effects in parallel. Now you say, oh, well, Miguel, now we see the price crashing. Yes, it's true, the price crashes because those curves were not correct actually. Supply of oil is not elastic. It's not like the masks. Now we all buy masks for anti-corona. There's more demand. Well, factories start to produce more. There are new factories in a few weeks. Everyone produces masks. So it's an elastic supply and demand. Oil, it's not like that. Oil cannot, it's not on off. It takes months, years, 5 years to increase capacity or to reduce capacity to invest in new fields. And so that's what happens. Today, here I showed the fact that supply diminishes and then demand increases. So that's what we thought would happen. And so the price would explode. I hope you understand the graph. What happens today with Corona is that demand diminishes, but the supply, they cannot diminish because it's open, it's just flowing, it's flowing out, and they cannot do anything with that oil, and so the price is going down. And you say, okay, nice, I understand. Yeah, in Canada, in Arkansas, there was oil sold at a negative price. Why? The producer, they had just oil coming, and they had to get rid of that oil. They had to get rid, so they were paying someone. Okay, they were paying 20 cents per barrel, but they were paying someone to take that oil away. This did happen 2 weeks ago. You can look it up. Negative oil prices. So you understand that supply and demand are. You understand that supply is not elastic. That's really important. And so with the low oil prices now, all the R&D investments are gone actually, and what we'll see is that the price will go up coming years. When the demand will pick up and the production will diminish, the price will explode. This happened in 2008 and 2012. So I'm not just inventing things. So you see that from 2007 to 2008, the price went from $50 per barrel to 140. So in a matter of 1 year, that happened. It was a normal year. There was I don't remember when was the Iraq war, etc. But actually, growth, more demand, and there's no new oil fields. So the world was constrained, so the price explodes. What happens when the price gets so up? Well, the growth stops. When the price goes up, growth stops. GDP here, the growth gets negative. And we have a crisis, and so here the crisis was the subprime mortgage crisis, but actually it's because the economy could not grow anymore. What happens? No investments, and then the price goes up steadily to 130. We have a plateau. people invest. You see that companies invest in new capacity, and then the price goes down again. And now everyone was thinking it would go up, and Corona put it down. Okay. I hope I was clear. I hope that at your dinner tonight, you're able to explain that those dynamics of the oil price. So if you're dependent on oil as a country, as a company, you will have an issue one day. You are not resilient. Okay. Think about airlines. I love to travel, but airlines that complain about high oil prices, I mean, you know it, right? It will happen. Just the four forces very rapidly. Think about the automotive industry. Environmental crisis. They cheated with the Dieselgate, actually, because the fact that they cheated and they went above the limits for fine particles, it caused the death of 38,000 people per year. Energy crisis. Well, all those big trucks in the US, those owners, they will complain when the price will go up as soon as the price will explode, and then there will be an issue. Political decisions: Paris to banish all petrol and diesel cars, Oslo to create car-free cities, and people, even in the US, millennials, the young generation, a little bit younger than I am, they don't buy cars. So those are the forces for the automotive industry. We know them, we see them, and then we mapped a few companies, and it's winning the electrical vehicle market. This is the vertical axis, and it's time before committing to the wave. So Tesla is the absolute winner. Tesla is the absolute winner today. Why? They sell very high value cars. They cover the entire chain, from the battery to the distribution to the maintenance, and yeah, they capture a lot of market. It's like Apple. Apple doesn't sell the most phones, but they capture the whole value. Toyota started very early with the hybrid. Unfortunately, since then, they have actually the hybrid price was so profitable that they said, okay, let's not invest in the future, let's just sell the hybrid, and today they are not winning anymore. Volvo committed in 2017 to produce only electric or plug-in or hybrid cars. And Volkswagen, the largest manufacturer, said after the Dieselgate, 5 years after, said we commit 66 billion to invest in electric vehicles. So you see, Tesla, they burned 19 billion to have an amazing value chain. I don't look only at the cars. They produce 50% of the batteries in the world today. Look at the entire value chain. Well, it costed them 19 billion, and today Volkswagen, they say, okay, we will put 66 billion. There are companies that are even worse than Tesla, and I apologize because I think there's one attendee who works for that company, but think about Fiat. Fiat in 2015, since 2015, was ranked as the most oppositional to climate change. The CEO didn't believe in climate change. 2019, Fiat Chrysler admitted that they were buying emission certificates from Tesla. So basically, that was a political decision by law. They had to pay money to Tesla to avoid larger fines. Okay, so that's, you see, that's the political force. And today, October 2019, it was a bit like, who wants to marry Fiat, because alone we will die. And so they tried with Renault, and now I think it will be with Peugeot. But like you see, they feel that they're desperate. So clearly, there's the surfer and there's the distressed cargo. I hope you understood that that wave is not to stop. Now let's focus very briefly on how to capture and how to develop winning value propositions. What we want is the focus of this part, and I will be a bit briefer, but it's to become a surfer. Environmental friendly companies, they always oppose technology optimists. Tesla, with degrowthers, people to say, oh, there's no more energy, we have to live like 200 years before, very poor, have windmills and have our coal. Technology optimists, they think that technology will solve everything. my conviction, our conviction is that there's it shouldn't be black and white. There are amazing value propositions in between. The surfer solution, it's not only environmental impact, it's not only economic return, it's combining both. It's creating sustainable value, a high economic value, a high environmental value, and it's becoming resilient. And of course, if you don't work towards from the co-situation to the surfer situation, or from the insect to the surfer, what you will end up is into the distress cargo, because the wave, remember that rogue wave is so high, so big, so powerful, you have no choice. We come back to the surfer solution in mobility. You see, they try to say, okay, you have the convenience. Here it's the convenience. It's not convenience and environmental. So, or you go fast and you pollute, or you go slow and you don't pollute. This is the paradigm that people try to put you into. I fundamentally don't agree. On purpose, I put Tesla here. When they started in 2008, their first model, the convenience was not that high. And it was not that high. And then why? The battery was small, there were no superchargers, the digital experience was not that what it was today. They have worked, and today the impact is lower. It's not zero, be aware, it's a bit lower, but the experience is already way better. But their solutions, the surfer, the really surfer status, it's for example, BlaBlaCar or Bike for Three. The younger ones will know BlaBlaCar. It's a French ride-sharing app. They have 87 million members. 87 million members. They have more than 25. They have more than 120 million passengers per year, and all those passengers pay a commission, a small commission to BlaBlaCar. And what do? They make sure that someone is not driving alone in his car, but is driving with 4 other people. So environmental impact, amazing. 200, 300 million revenues to come. Profit margin 90%, amazing. And that's a great impact for both the environment and for the convenience. And if you do BlaBlaCar in a Tesla, then we have the best solution, and then we combine both and we finish here. Okay? You say, okay, this is very nice. Well, BlaBlaCar today has basically taken 15% market share from the French rail operator. Think about it, and the French rail operator seeing that, and they have way more profitability than the French rail operator. Seeing that, the French rail operator has sold their bus operations. Think about Megabus or Flixbus. Well, there was a company by the French operator. They have sold it to BlaBlaCar. I put a bike here. That bike costs 5,000 euros. It's not a car of 25,000 euros, but it's a bike of 5,000. And that bike, well, you can sell way more bikes than cars, of course. That bike transports 3 people up to 60 kilo of cargo. I cannot use it to go to the seaside, but I can use it to do my groceries. I can use it for a lot of things. So the company, this company, basically, it's a Belgian company, and they're doing an amazing job. You just saw the e-scooters move. E-scooters are not so green, but they have to work on the sustainability. Very rapidly, we are running a bit out of time. Surfer solutions in cleaning products. You have what you know, convenience and very polluting, the plastic bottles and the acid thing. You don't have to fall in the trap of just going for nature. You can, the first step is to use reusable bottles and go and buy just the liquid at the grocery source. It's a Belgian company called EcoTap. The next level, it's called a company called BrightWolves, and they just sell the tablets. And they sell the tablets and the bottles. And so you see that the tablets, it's so small, it's very easy to ship, and you can probably that your profit margins once you have the market are way better than the past business. So those are the surfer solutions. I will skip the food, and we will conclude. So you understand, we have defined 6 steps to reach to that surfer status. The first thing is to understand the value inside your company. Bosch, the German company, is still supplying a lot of equipment to car manufacturers, but they were positioned very well for the e-bike market. And I can guarantee you that they are selling hundreds of millions of electrical motors to the e-bike market. Let's understand what's your current value that you can leverage. The second step is to understand the wave that is coming to you. The third step is to anchor the values in your strategy. Why is that very important to do? Because if those values and if that conviction is not in your strategy, as soon as you change leadership or there's a hiccup, those are the first projects that you will kill. Then you design the projects, you implement them, and you communicate. Most importantly, it's an iterative loop. You won't do it right. You won't do the perfect thing from the first time. You have to learn and go fast. To summarize, engaging in the sustainable business transformation will tackle most of the business leaders' priorities. It will make your company resilient. There's no compromise between economic value and environmental value. Every company can become a surfer. You have no choice, actually. Or you become a surfer, or you become the distressed cargo, because the four forces will win. It's a rogue wave. You have to really think about oil as drugs. And it's when you are a drug addict, you have to stop that addiction as soon as possible. So that's very important. Global warming, it's real. It's really real. It will have immense effects on our political system and our company's operations. It's so real that even the most polluting companies, they have decided, yeah, we want to be the surfer. We don't want to be the distressed cargo. So they have taken pledges to be towards carbon neutrality, towards another system. So don't waste your time. Look at this wave as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and see you on the wave. So now, what do you think? If you have questions, use the chat or the Q&A forum or remarks. I'm glad to take them. I try to see if there are questions. Okay. Okay. I look at the questions. How do you explain the current oil crash? I will start with that. Well, very briefly, it's a double effect. There is way less demand. I think 25% less demand for oil, because half of the population is confined. Half of the population, 90% of the GDP of the oil consumption is confined. So it's not driving around. And at the same time, Russia and Saudi had a small war that they are trying to solve now, and so they are. So there was a lower demand and an increase in supply, and so the price completely collapsed. Okay, I see a lot of questions. So one question is COVID-19. How can we seize that as an opportunity? Well, after a crisis, think about 2008. What do politicians do? They print money and they launch large infrastructure projects. I will make it very simple, but we have to invest in projects to build a system that is less dependent on oil. So charger infrastructure is one. Electrical grid is very critical for all the renewables. But another thing is that our cities should be sustainable. Also, our food production today is very dependent on oil. All the pesticides, all the nutrients are basically gas derivatives. So, and gas and oil prices are correlated. So that's a major thing. If we look at a stupid investment would be to build larger highways, because we know larger highways would attract more cars. Also, in Wallonia, they had a good strategy, basically with two airports, very strategic airports, Liège for the logistics aspect and Charleroi for the passengers. Well, those assets who are generating the revival of the Walloon economy, well, they are at risk. They are at risk the day that the price goes from 30 to 200, and it can be in 3, 5, or 10 years, I don't know. Well, those assets will be stranded. Okay, I see there's an interesting question. They say the sustainability, the sustainable transformation will provoke a shift to more renewables. Think about PV, think about wind farms, think about batteries. And all those components require special materials, special metals and rare earths. I'm not a specialist. Think about lithium, copper, cobalt, and other special names at the end of the Mendeleev table. Those metals and materials are mostly available in China. So basically, the sustainable transformation, we will see a shift from the power in Saudi, in US, now with the shale, in Norway, we will see a shift towards China, because they have the raw materials. And the raw materials that they don't have, well, they have sent out their people in Africa or in Chile to get them. So there will be a shift in power, and that's, you have to take it, to keep it with your mind, because those materials are not infinite neither. So they will become a constraint. They will be the new oil. That's why the business of Umicore, by the way, is interesting, because at the opposite of oil, with oil you burn it and it's gone. Those materials you can recycle and reuse them. Okay, there's one question about water. It's more about footprint. So the first step is to understand the footprint of your company. And of course, there's more than CO2. There's more than CO2, there's water, there's materials, there's other kind of pollution. So you should look at it in a broader way. That's definitive, because your customers or the politicians or other forces will at one moment or another will force you to take that lift. Okay, maybe a final question. I see a final question. So will Belgium keep its maintenance, its nuclear plants? I don't know. It's a political decision, and we have seen that our politicians are not taking rational decisions. They are taking emotive decisions. So there are two misconceptions about nuclear. First, the first misconception is that we surestimate the danger, and the second misconception is that we think that an old asset is dangerous. Actually, a dangerous nuclear asset, it's very dangerous at the startup, and then it's very flat. You see that the number of incidents is flat. After the first 3 years, the number of incidents is flat. It's not degrading. It's not getting worse and worse and worse. What you read in the media, it's like a lot of emotion. If I'm a journalist, I want to write, there's an incident in Doel, I want clicks, I will write about it. And maybe it's just a worker that fell. Okay, so an asset, the first point about nuclear is that a plant doesn't become dangerous. the nuclear power plant of Doel and Tihange are not more dangerous today than 2 years ago, okay? Than 20 years ago neither. I worked in a chemical plant. The machines that I operated were very technical machines, were 60 years old. Okay, so and they were running perfectly at pressures that that a nuclear plant doesn't know. Okay, that's the first thing. So the plants, the fact that the plants are old, it's not an issue. In France, they closed the oldest plants. That was a big mistake, I think. The second thing is about the danger of nuclear plants. I hope you remember the danger of global warming and also the danger of degrowth. And we had Fukushima, and that was a terrible event. Why? You had the tsunami, you had the earthquake, and you had the nuclear explosion. The nuclear, it's not an explosion, sorry, the nuclear incident. And there was some radiation. What you have to understand is that the radiation impacts you. It's there are two elements. It's the duration that you're impacted and the force. What you have to know is that Fukushima, actually, we cannot prove that it had an impact on the health of Japanese people. They fled away around the region, but radiation had so far no impact. And it's the United Nations that published a study about that. It had no impact on the health. It's one thing. That's one thing. And then the second thing I wanted to say is that if we close the power plant, the nuclear power plant, we will replace it by gas and fossil fuel. That's what will happen. So thank you for all your questions. I think we are over time, so I will just finish. Final thoughts. Be very pessimistic about the wave. It's very high and it's very powerful, but be optimistic about the surfing. Into your solutions, into your new initiatives, go for 80%. Don't try to be perfect. Tesla is not perfect. They use materials, they generate some emissions. Don't go for perfections, go for 80%, then you can move ahead and then you can learn and improve. Think in terms of systems. A factory that is well designed, minimizing waste, transport, energy use, will be 10 times better than a system that is badly designed. Think about cities. Huh? Go to a Dutch city and Brussels. I mean, in the Netherlands, they use the bikes. In Brussels, they use their cars. Okay? Nudge your community. Try to incentivize all your community towards a better behavior. Transport is something that we understand very well, so try to incentivize them to carpool, try to incentivize them to take the bike, but it's also about consumption. It's if you are a restaurant, for example, try to nudge them to seasonal vegetables instead of the other. It's way more powerful than just taking initiatives for you, and it's way more rewarding. It's way more easy for me to have impact on BrightWolves as a whole than just do my little thing in my house. Use sustainability as a lever for your business model, for your resilience. It's really will unlock creativity and new ideas and energy. And then the last message is start now. It's the second best time. The best time was in 1990, where there was the Kyoto agreement and we realized that global warming would be an issue. But now we are 30 years later. Thank you very much for your attendance. If I can ask you one favor, it's to take 1 minute and just think about, okay, coming 1-2 months where you're still confined, what can you do to reduce your impact, your footprint at home, and to reduce your footprint at work? Think about those tips. You don't need to be perfect. Think about systems, think about the community. It's a incredible lever for launching new products. It's an incredible lever to innovate and to generate new revenue growth. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you to the entire BrightWolves team that has basically contributed to this presentation. See you soon. Remarks, questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Follow us on LinkedIn and you will receive a small follow-up email, but you can already scan this QR code and fill in a very short survey. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. It's time for aperitif. Bye-bye.